Hey kids, this is Ivan. How you doing? I am not playing by the rules. I am totally cheating. Complex Games Apologist posted a video, I think it was on Facebook Live, to the Facebook RPG Brigade group, and it was about Game Master Persona. He posted actually 3 of them at this point, and I know a couple other YouTube or Brigade members rather posted some Facebook Live videos as well. I know Runeslinger did. I think Chalice and Chains. I think Infinite Roleplay. I'm not sure if anybody else did. They probably have at this point. I'm not playing by the rules. Complex Games Apologist was hoping that we would post them there, and I will certainly link this to one of them. But one of the reasons I didn't want to put something there is in case I said something really great. I don't know if I will. For me, that media tends to be very ephemeral and very hard to search. And I like the more permanent nature of YouTube. And I can't begin to count the number of times that I've discovered a topic or video or a new channel or whatever, a line of thought that was years old. Like somebody posted 2, 3, 4 years before. And I was glad that I could find it. I'm glad it was still there, still easily searchable, or that would pop up on my feed. And so to me, the thing that is more dismaying is that, on something like Facebook, they might just disappear and we won't be able to find them, or it'd be really hard to find them, or nobody else would find them by accident. That's, to me, part of the joy of all this. Let's get on to the topic itself. Complex Games Apologist brought up some great thoughts about the Game Master persona. How he talked about, I think the example he gave was Andre from the RPG Brigade, great guy. He has this persona. It's like Dungeon Master Death. And one of his players actually commented on either Complex Games Apologist video or Runeslinger's video about how fun that is, how entertaining it is, how he can really create tension and drama and just a good time in the game by doing that. And I'm not knocking that at all. So that's not my intention in this video. It's not something I necessarily do. It's not something that I necessarily would want a game master of mine to do. I mean, it can be fun. I mean, I've certainly played with people that have done that, and it can be a hoot. But I don't think I'd want to have them do it long term. And part of that for me is it's too much of an out of character experience. We're constantly getting yanked back out of character to kind of have this dialogue with the game master, with this persona, where it's clearly that persona is not in the game world. My character isn't interacting with them. I'm interacting with them. That's not a bad thing. It's just not my preferred style. It can be really entertaining to watch as a third party, and I think for me that was part of the main, one of the main things that occurred to me as I thought about this today. Is as a third party, that can be really entertaining. There's lots of other channels or shows or whatever you call them, and mostly Dungeons and Dragons, and they're really popular. They have thousands of views, a lot more views than my channel will ever get. I tell you, I tell you what, but. People enjoy that. It can be really entertaining. And a lot of times the game master will have this persona, and there's a lot of out of character banter between the game master and the players and the other players amongst each other. That's cool. That can be a lot of fun to watch. It's not necessarily how I want my game to run while I'm actually playing it or running it. So not a preferred thing for me. And so I think the interjection of a game master persona in whatever game I'm playing isn't something that I really want. And there was a lot of points brought up between just CGA and his commenters and video commenters or just typing commenters on Facebook about isn't there some kind of persona involved when you're invoking some kind of in-game currency, if you're and he talked more about those things that would happen in games that use currency, like something like Fate or Fantasy Flight Star Wars or the 2D20 system, etc. And I'm not familiar with all those. I've gotten turned on to a bunch of them, not all of them, so I don't know how all those work. But for me, a lot more of that is more of like simulation of a genre. We talk about sometimes the term simulationism gets bandied about, and it's not about simulating stuff like simulating wounds or simulating how a vehicle works or simulating how you're going to walk from A to B or how you go to the bathroom and all that kind of junk. Simulationism, if I can say the word, is more about like, well, hey, we're playing in 30 Years' War of France. We're musketeers, but there's vampires and werewolves. There's this feeling of horror around France. There's this. Not only is it tense because there's a war going on, but people in the know, or people that are started to bump up against this more supernatural, horrific thing, there's a really dark feeling going on. That's the genre. It's supernatural, musketeer horror. right? That's the genre we're emulating. So we're simulating what it would be like to be those characters in that world, and what it would be like to be Philippe, what it would be like to be Jean-Marie, who's out to have vengeance for his son, or Martin, who's wants vengeance against his family, or Briscoe, who's just, well, he's Briscoe, but you're discovering the depth of those characters. That's more simulationism. We are simulating that genre. The decisions we make, it's an interesting experiment, which I was thinking about as I was thinking about this topic, because there's 4 game masters in that game. And so each time another one of us runs the game, it can feel a little bit different. There's different game master style, but I never feel like I'm dealing with Sebastian's alter ego, or Anthony's alter ego, or Francois' alter ego, and hopefully they don't feel like they're dealing with my alter ego. When I sit down and run the game, it's Ivan's running a game. And so I might have little stylistic differences. Some of us have played the game, or ran the game a little darker. Some of us have ran it a little bit more lighthearted, or more. There's a goal, but I think also that's kind of like what do we bring as the hook for our one shot that time. So a little bit of differences, but a lot of the how that game ends up feeling is the 4 of us, and no matter who's running the thing, or behind the screen, or whatever you want to call it. Those characters, 3 of those characters are always there, so it might feel a little bit different, but not a heck of a lot. So there's no real, to me, there's no real game master persona, even though we're using we are making decisions as game masters, consciously or unconsciously, to reinforce that genre, making decisions that would, make a turn. Like, Anthony made some decisions. I think I made some decisions in my game, which turned the game towards more like a little bit of level of despair, and just exposing some of the supernatural horror, and some of the feeling of the characters being a little bit more insignificant. They're these mighty swashbuckling musketeers, but they can't overcome everything. I'm digressing here, but we're making those decisions. It's not. I don't believe whether you're using an in-game currency that's going to help you, in a codified manner, enforce that genre, whatever it might be, or whether you're just doing it kind of more like old school, and doing it as a decision, a conscious decision. And that's something that we talked about at the beginning of the game. And then, there are other games where certainly the in-game currencies, the decisions you're going to make are going to emphasize more of a very pulpy feel, or the characters can overcome almost anything, and etc., or very Star Warsy feel, etc. The in-game mechanics help support that, or very Star Trek feel. But I don't necessarily think there has to be a game master persona behind that. It's just using, you're just reinforcing that genre as a I guess, I don't want to say impartial judge, but it's your responsibility to run the rest of the world, and you all agreed to play with this particular theme. So I don't necessarily think it's a persona thing. I don't want to interact with a game master who's making these decisions, and there's a persona behind it. Because once again, I'm getting yanked out of character, and I'm interacting with that persona. And I know my character. If I'm an android in Star Trek, I'm no longer, I'm all of a sudden I'm not that android in Star Trek. I'm Ivan interacting with this game master. I think that's the point I'm making. So yeah, I don't think at the end of the day, I think it comes down more to style. I think it's my personal taste that I don't necessarily want a game master persona in there. I was thinking about it too, in terms of what I've done in my life. Otherwise, like I've been a trainer for work, and I've done these things where like I'm a little bit more introverted than extroverted, and I've had to kind of amp myself up to go train, to go be that energetic and what have you. So I put on a bit of a persona, if you will, the happier, more energetic Ivan, and that can be a little exhausting. I've done that. I don't think I've done that in role-playing games, but it can be. It's a lot of social interaction, more pronounced or prolonged social interaction. 2, 3, 4 hours than I normally get in a day, where I'm usually busy doing other stuff and then having brief interactions with people. I'm not a hermit by any means, but you know what I mean. It can be a lot of work, and so sometimes I can go away from that feeling a little exhausted as well. But I don't think I necessarily put on a persona to do that. But it's an intriguing question. I think there's a lot of layers, a lot of different ways that you can think about that or consider that question. So I appreciate that Complex Games Apologist posed it, and I'm still kind of thinking about it at this point. But sorry I didn't post this on and play by the rules and post this on Facebook, but I will link it. And so, what are your thoughts about all that? You know, if you're not a member of the brigade, you probably can't see his video, which is really unfortunate. But like to hear your responses to this or your thoughts.